समरो दुख मा समरो समरो दिवस निरात जीवता समरो मरता समरो समरो सौ संगाट समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार योगी समरे भोगी समरे समरे राजा रंग देवो समरे दानव समरे समरे सोनी शंख समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार अड़सत अक्षर ए ना जानो अड़सत तीरथ सार 8 संपदा थी परमाणो अड़सिद्धि दातार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार नवपद एना नवनिध आपे भव भवना दुख कापे वीर वचन थी हृदय व्यापे परमतम पद आपे समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार
Ajit, we are on.
Okay, thank you. Kavit, if people want to join and keep their videos on, just wondering whether it might be possible to allow a few people to do that. Or if is that
We will do that afterwards. આજના settings છે ને already set થઈ ગયા છે.
okay,
So
okay,
we can, if we do it next time around.
okay. All right. All right. Pranam, Jai Jinendra, everybody. Welcome to this introduction to Jainism. And we've started a new interesting topic last week, and we'll carry on with this for several weeks, as I said. It's Bharesar Bahubali Sajjai. We'll be taking more great men and women that are described in the who's by name in this Sajjai, and learning about their important events in their lives, as a result of which they are remembered every day by all Jains. Okay, let's start with the prayer. Let me just share my slides. Okay. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Lui Sabba Sahunam, एषो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सब्ब पावपणासनो मङ्गलाणञ्च सव्वेसिं परमं हवै मङ्गलम् वीर सर्वसुरा सुरेन्द्रमहितो वीरम्बुधा संसृता वीरेणाभियत स्वकर्मनिचयो वीराय नित्यं नमः वीरातीर्थमिदं प्रवृतमतुलं वीरस्य घोरं तपो वीरे श्रीधृति कीर्तिकान्तिनिचय श्रीवीरभद्रं दिश अंगूठे अमृतवसे लप्तितणा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांचित फलदातार. Before we start the actual class today, I just want to make an announcement for next week. We got a guest lecturer who is taking this class next week, and I will just read out the details in a minute. We got Atmaprit Smruti ji, who is from the Srimad Rajchandra Mission Dharmpur, and she has studied under the guidance of Rakesh Bhai. Those of you who might have listened to the satsang this Sunday, there was another person, Atmaprit Rajuji, who took the Sunday satsang on behalf of Jayesh Bhai, the Sunday gone. And Atmaprit Smruti ji is also from the same organization, Srimad Rajchandra Mission Dharampur. And she will be talking about let's see, give me 1 second. So the Sunday satsang was wave goodbye to worries, saying hello to ease and peace. It was very interesting, talking about our constant anxieties. And the next week's class on Tuesday is titled The Amazing Power of Belief. And I expect that Atmaprit Smruti ji will be talking about the power of right faith and right belief. And she is an expert speaker, so I'm sure you'll all enjoy that. And subsequent to that, on the following Tuesday, I'm away, so you will get some details about what's happening to that class, but we'll be resuming this topic on Bharesar Sajjai from the 8th of May when I'm back. So for the next 2 weeks, there'll be slightly different lectures. It's the amazing power of belief from Atmaprit Smruti ji next Tuesday, and the following Tuesday, we're still making some inquiries, and you will get a message from Sandeep Bhai about what's been decided about the following Tuesday. Not the one coming, but the one after that. That is, I think, the 2nd of or the 1st of May. Okay. Right. Let's get back to our class. Okay. For this series of talks, I'm going to continue to recite Paresar Sajjai for every class, and I hope that some of you feel inspired to try and learn it by heart. That's a goal I've set for myself, to revise what I'd learned during my school days many years ago. So here goes. Paresar ni Sajjai. Paresar Bahubali Abai Kumaro a Dandan Kumaro Sirio Aniau to Aimuto Nagadato a Mej Thuli Baddo वैर ऋषि नंदी सेण सिंह गिरी कई वन्नो असुकोसल पुंडरियो केसी करकंडु हल विहल सुदंसण साल महासाल साली बद्दो अबद्दो दसन बद्दो पसन चंदो अचस बद्दो जंबु पहु वंक चूलो गई सुकुमालो अवंती सुकुमालो दन्नो इलाई पुत्तो चिलाई पुत्तो अबाहुमुनि अज्ज गिरी अज्ज रखिया अज्ज सुअथी उदायगो मणगो काले सुरी संबो पजुनो मूल देवो पब्ब ओ वेणु कुमारो अद कुमारो दट पहारे सिजंस कुरगड्डु सिजंस भव मेह कुमारो ए माई महासत्ता दिंतु सुहम गुण गणे हिम संजूता जैसीम नाम गहणे पावप बंदा विलयम जंती सुलसा चंदन बाड़ा मनोरमा मयण रेया दमयंती नैना नमिया सुंदरी सिया नंदा बद्दा सुबदाय राय मई ऋषिदत्ता पौमावई अंजना सिरी देवी जिठ सुजिठ मिगावई पपावई चिलना देवी बंबी सुंदरी रूपिणी बंबी सुंदरी रूपिणी रेवई कुंती शिवा जयंती देवई दोवई धारणी कलावई पुफ चुलाय पौमावई गोरी गंधारे लक्ष्मणा सुसीमाय जंबुवई सच भामा रूपिणी कणहठ महिषियो जखाय जखदीना भुआ तहचेव भुव दिनाय सेना वेणा रेणा बहिणियों थुलिपद्दस इच्छाई महासेयो जयंती अकलंक सील कलियाओ अजवी वजई जासिम जस पढ़ो तिहुअणे सयले. We won't go into everything that we covered last week, just some things that I think are worth reminding ourselves. In this sutra, Paresar Sajjai, we are remembering 100 individuals who contemplated on the soul and made great spiritual progress by changing the course of their lives. And the Sajjai only describes them by their name, and it's recited in the morning Pratikramana, that's the Raya Pratikramana. And everybody who does that Pratikramana is meant to reflect on the lives and these particular stories of these great people to inspire us first thing in the morning about how best to lead our life. We are appreciating their actions and hope and pray that we can walk the path they followed. This is what our Swadhyay Sajjai is about. So the Sajjai includes the names of 53 great men Mahapurusho and 47 great women Mahasatiyo. We talked about the life of Bharat Chakravarti last week, and we recited a couple of stories which are relevant, but there is a lot to learn about Bharat Chakravarti, as I mentioned last time, but it would take a very long time to go through his full life story, which is described very well in the first volume of Trisashti Shalaka Purush Charitra, which also includes the life of Bhagwan Mahavir and also the life of Bahubali, about whom we are going to learn today. Sorry, I think I picked up the wrong slide. Give me 1 second. So just to remind ourselves about this particular arrangement that Bharat Chakravarti had made with the courtiers, the Shravaks in his huge empire, was to remind him on a daily basis that though he was known as the Chakravarti, the emperor of the entire Bharat Kshetra, he was still a slave to his senses, and he had arranged that this is a reminder that he should be getting every day in the court, and his Shravaks would say, Jito Bhavana Vardate Bhi. You are vanquished by your senses, the fear in you is forever increasing. And he remembered this on a daily basis and altered the way in which he lived, that so much so that in spite of being a householder, the emperor of the whole world, and living in absolute luxury, which we can't even imagine, he actually got to a state where, by as a result of a small uh, sign that led him to a thought process that helped get rid of all his karmas, and he achieved Keval Gnan even while he was in his palace. He obviously became a monk afterwards, immediately, and spent a long time uh, preaching to a lot of people. Bahubali is the other person, the second person that's remembered in this Sajai. So if you remember Bharesara Bahubali, so he's the second person, and we are going to hear his story today. Bhagwan Rishabdev had two wives, Sumangala and Sunanda. Now, some of you might know, but that was a time which was at the end of the Yuglik Kal. Yuglik Kal is the time when there is a lot of peace, happiness, and men and women would be born as twins, one man, one woman, as a result of an association with their parents just once in their lifetime. And the parents would die very peacefully once the children had grown up to a certain level. And the world was such, it is like something similar to what is described at the beginning of time in the Bible, Adam and Eve. The Yuglic couple born together, but in the end acting as husband and wife and producing another set of twin of a man and a woman. So Bhagwan Rushabdev was born with his twin, who was also his wife. That was the norm in that time, in Yuglic Kal. That is the norm everywhere, every time. And then there was another lady whose husband had died, and that was very unusual as well, because until now, both the people in the couple, the man and the woman, would live together and die together, as if they would go to sleep and not wake up. And that was how their death was. There's no disease, there was no pain. Every need was completely satisfied. They did not know how to farm, how to do anything. Life was almost completely worry free. But as the times changed and things began to get slowly worse, that was the time then when Bhagwan Rushabdev's ancestors, who were the people who knew from their previous lives certain ways of changing because of the changing times, and they were called kulkars. They slowly directed the people in that time to uh, learning some basic things. And after Bhagwan Rushabdev was born, he taught the people there all the different skills, how to farm, how to make pots, and all kinds of things were taught by Bhagwan Rushabdev during his life as a king of that kingdom. So he was the first king. In the first verse of Saklarth Sutra, which is a Chaitya Vandan, it says Adimam Prithvinatha Madimam Nishparigraham. So he was the first king, Adimam Prithvinatham Madimam Nishparigraham. He was also the first monk, Bhagwan Rushabdev. Adimam Tirthanatham Cha. He established the first Jain Tirth. That means the fold of Sadhu, Sadhvi, Shravaka, and Shravika. Adimam Prithvinatha Madimam Nishparigraham Madimam Tirthanatham Cha Rusab Swaminam Stumaha. So that first word, the beginning, in the beginning of this Saklarth Sutra, this verse is recited about who Bhagwan Adeshwar was. So he had two wives, Sumangla and Sunanda, and I've just described the reason why that happened. By Sumangla, he had 99 sons, of whom Bharat was the eldest and the best known, and a daughter called Brahmi. By the second wife, Sunanda, he had one son, Bahubali, and a daughter named Sundri. At the time of his renunciation, when he, after having established the kingdom, taught people the various skills so that they could survive in the changing times that had come about, because the Yuglic Kal was coming to an end. People had to learn to fend for themselves because there were no longer kalpvriksh which gave them what they desired just for the asking. So all those kalpvriksh and everything had disappeared. And so people had to learn how to grow food, how to cook food, how to make things. And this was all taught by Bhagwan Rushabdev. After he had established all that and taught people how to govern as well, so he established the first kingdom. He then, his next task was to teach people about renunciation, and he became a monk. And at that time, people had not seen any monk and they didn't know what a monk would have. So as you might all remember, he roamed about for about 13 months, trying to, going from place to place, waiting for somebody to realize that this was what he was seeking. He was obviously not going to tell anybody. So he had actually had to fast for almost more than a year, and it's finally his fast was broken by his grandson called Shreyans, who, as a result of him remembering his previous life, he understood what was suitable for a Jain monk, a Nilgranth monk, and he served him with pots of sugarcane juice, which was just ready at the time. And that is when Bhagwan Rushabdev broke his fast. We mimic this on the day of Akshay Trutya, when people who do the Varshitap and their Varshitap on that day. So that is apologies. So on that day, the Akshay Trutya, the people who do Varshitap, who these days obviously most people wouldn't be able to fast for the whole month. So the normal process for that tap is a fast one day and um, eating once the next day. So upwas ekasnu, that's how it goes. And a lot of people, even here in London, are, I think, currently doing that. At the time of his renunciation, Bhagwan Rushabdev gave the throne of Vinita, also known as Ayodhya, that is the current, where the current Ayodhya Ram temple is, to Bharat, and the city of Takshila, it was also called Potanpur, uh, to Bahubali, and he gave various different parts of his vast kingdom to his other 98 sons. So that's how the kingdom was distributed, and all the children settled in their kingdoms and ruled wisely and peacefully. Bharat Maharaja, who was destined to become a Chakravarti, after his Chakra Ratna, that is the disc with blades that you would have probably seen in the serial Mahabharat or similar Indian um, uh, series on Krishna. You may have seen that it's something like that. So Bharat Chakravarti set out on his mission to conquer the whole of Bharat Kshetra. And he finished that, and then he arrived where his 98 brothers were ruling, and he demanded that they accept his leadership and accept him as emperor. The brothers were obviously not pleased, but with not wanting to fight or argue about that, they just went to Bhagwan Rushabdev and asked him what they should do, saying that you have given us these kingdoms. Our brother Bharat is asking for us to come under his leadership and lose our independence. And Bhagwan Rushabdev explained to them that the bigger battle is actually conquering your inner passions, your rag, dvesh, your anger, greed, your attachment, uh, your pride, and those are much more important enemies. And you really want to attain the true kingdom, that is moksha. So why don't you pursue that path and not worry about your kingdoms? And they all realized the futility of fighting with their elder brother, and they surrendered their countries to him. Uh, and Bharat left an administration. Chakravarti Bharatdev left an administration and carried on. So they all became monks, all the 98 brothers. And when Bharat Maharaja reached Ayodhya, his Chakra Ratna was looked after by the Devs, and it refused to return to his armory where its normal resting place was. So this was sort of a magical weapon. And when he asked his men why that is so, that he thought that he had conquered the whole world and the Chakraratna's job had finished, and he was now the Chakravarti of Bharat Kshetra. The answer was that you still have one king who has not accepted your leadership or come under your guidance as the emperor. And he said, who is that? So said, it's your brother, who is the king of Takshila, your brother Bahubali. So Bharat went to Bahubali and appealed to him that accept my leadership, accept me as your emperor, and you can carry on ruling your kingdom of Takshila under my guidance or under my ultimate rule. And Bahubali was not ready to do that. He says, I am the king here, and I don't really want to, you already conquered everything. Why do you need my kingdom? And he couldn't understand that Bharat was destined to be a Chakravarti, and his Chakraratna wouldn't return to its rightful place unless he actually surrendered. And the two brothers would not sort of budge. So they set their armies against each other and prepared for war. Now, it was quite obvious that the huge army of the Chakravarti and the huge army of Bahubali, who was also an extremely strong king, and in terms of personal strength, in fact, Chakravarti would be the strongest person in the world at the time, and he would have a huge amount of power. But Bahubali, as a result of the punya that he had acquired in his previous life, was also extremely strong. And in fact, he was actually stronger than Bharat, which was extremely rare or unusual. But people were getting very frightened that if the war between these two brothers actually starts, then that is going to mean the death of millions of innocent people, millions of soldiers, and maybe they could settle their difference in a different way. So the story goes that Indra Maharaja came down and persuaded the two brothers that the fight is between you two. Why don't you decide who is superior and uh, who should rule by just arranging some specific duels between you two? So Indra Maharaja sets up about 5 different types of duels for them, which were meant to test their resolve, their strength, and all that. And one after the other, these duels were fought as the armies watched, and as a lot of other people, and probably devs and devis from the skies were watching. And in each one of these duels, Bahubali was victorious in 4 of them. And because Bharat was getting quite upset, he was thinking that my brother should come under my leadership and he should surrender to me. Why is he not? And he got extremely angry. And you'll probably find pictures, and there are a couple of cartoon stories for children on this, which shows that Bharat uh, takes his fist and hits Bahubali on the head, and the power of his strength was so great that Bahubali's body actually sinks into the ground. It breaks the ground and sinks into it. Obviously, any ordinary person would have been killed, and the skull would have fractured in hundreds of pieces with such. That was the force and the power of Bharat's uh, fist. But Bahubali, as I mentioned earlier, was just as strong and powerful, and he just sinks down. And Bahubali becomes extremely upset about this. And also, Bharat ultimately, actually, I think I've made a mistake. I think it was the other way around. No, I think, yeah, I'm right. Bharat hit Bahubali on the head. But then, when he becomes extremely angry, he releases his Chakraratna to go and behead Bahubali. All Bharat's attempts to defeat Bahubali failed. Bharat contemplated how unbearable and shameful this would be. He grew desperate and ignored the rules of the duel and unleashed the Chakraratna at Bahubali. But the Chakraratna went around Bahubali and returned back to Bharat without harming Bahubali, because the Chakraratna's rule is that it would not harm the person from the same bloodline, from the same family. Therefore, the Chakraratna returned to Bharat and Bahubali remained unharmed, and Bahubali became extremely angry at this, that Bharat had ignored the rules, he had violated the principles that had set for the duel, and he decided that he gets so angry that he raises his fist to hit Bharat, and people were afraid that Bahubali was so powerful that that would actually really harm Bharat. But somebody asked Bahubali to think about what he was doing. And he stopped. He said, what am I really doing? What is the value of this kingdom? I am, and there is a picture of him standing in some artwork that has been created to illustrate this story, of him standing with his arm raised, with his eyes very angry and upset, and suddenly showing a sense of calming and contemplating exactly what he was doing. And he's thinking, do I really want this kingdom? Do I really want to harm my brother? What have we come to? We are two dear brothers who have grown up and loved each other, and we are here now fighting. And I have raised my fist knowing that if I actually hit Bharat with this, then it would cause him very serious harm. So there is no point in carrying on with this pursuit of wanting to keep my kingdom. I'll just let Bharat Chakravarti take the kingdom and rule. He had no worries that his subjects would be cared for and looked after very well. So none of the brothers had any doubt about any of that. It was just a matter of pride and the desire for power. But Bahubali takes a decision that there is no point in carrying on pursuing this goal. But then he thinks, I've raised my hand. I can't let it go without following through an action that is worthwhile. I've raised my hand to hit my brother. But what is greater than that? I've decided that I'm not going to pursue this, and I'm going to let Bharat take over the kingdom and give it to him. But he says in his mind that I must do something worthwhile with this raised hand. I am a king, and I cannot, having raised my hand, put it down without having accomplished something worthwhile. So he decides that he will become a monk. And on the battlefield, while everybody is looking, he stands there, puts his hand on his head, lifts up all his hair, and the strength, that is what all the Tirthankars used to do as well. They do what is called a Panch Musti Loch. Panch Musti means 5 fists. So one by one, all the scalp hair is removed and it's just pulled out. It's not the simple shaving that we do. This is people, and even in this day and age, a lot of our monks actually routinely undergo a level of mundan of that type, where the hair is just pulled off. And some of you may have seen some YouTube videos on this, how this is done. But Bahubali decides to do this, and he removes all his hair and becomes a monk. And the next thought that enters in his mind, that obviously he has now become a monk and followed the path that laid out by Bhagwan Rishabdev, and therefore he should go and bow down to him and get accepted in the fold. But then he thinks again. He says, if I go there now, I will have to bow down to my 98 younger brothers, because they have all become monks before me. And that is the rule. No matter what your age, if you have become a monk later than the others, then they are your seniors, even if it is a child, even if it's a very young person, and you may be 60, 70, if you become a monk, then they are greater and bigger than you, and they are worthy of your uh, namaskar, and that is what the rule is. So Bahubali thinks that if I go to Bhagwan Rishabdev now, I will have to bow down to my brother, all my 98 brothers. So I will wait until I actually achieve Keval Gnan, because at that point he would be on par or higher. If he achieves Keval Gnan, then he wouldn't have to bow down to anybody who had not achieved Keval Gnan. Okay? So he would be on par at the highest level. He would have become an Arihant, not a Tirthankar, but he would have become an Arihant. So he stands in meditation where the battlefield was, and just stands there. And this goes on for a whole year. So he is constantly in meditation. And those of you who, I'm sure everybody has seen this image of the gigantic Bahubali Murti that is in Shravan Belgola in, I think it's in Karnataka, South India. It's a 57-foot upright statue of Bahubali. It stands on the hills of Vidyagiri in Shravan Belgola near Bangalore, South India. It is made out of a single rock of granite, and was created about 1,000 years ago to commemorate Bahubali and to sort of worship him. And what you can see in the Murti here on the legs, it depicts that the vines from the vegetation has, because he's completely still and he stays in that place for, in that position for a year, vines have grown up along his feet and covered and are covering his body. And that is what this statue is depicting, this Murti is depicting. And this Murti has got a Maha Abhishek, meaning it is washed, I think once every 10 years or 12 years, I forget, but it is washed once every few years. Now, Bahubali stays in this position for a year, and in meditation, in Kausak Dhyan, and that process, he is actually getting rid of a huge amount of karmas. He's very near Keval Gnan, but he's not getting it. And his sisters, Brahmi and Sundari, learn about this, and with the permission of Bhagwan Rushabdev, go and see him and stand in front of him, bow down to him, and tell him some very simple verse. And in Gujarati, it goes like this. He says, Vira Mora Gaj Thaki Utro. Vira is brother, Vira Mora. So our brother, Vira Mora, my brother, गज थकी उतरो, गज चढ़े केवल न होए. So the words literally mean, oh my brother, come down from the elephant you are sitting on. You cannot become omniscient, you cannot get rid of all your karmas and achieve Keval Gnan while you're sitting on an elephant like this. And Bahubali starts thinking that my sisters are telling me to come down from this elephant, but I'm not sitting on an elephant. Then he realizes that they're right. I'm actually sitting on an elephant of pride. I have mounted that elephant and decided that I won't go down and visit and bow down to my brothers until I achieve Keval Gnan. So that is my ego and my pride that is speaking there. So my sisters are right that I have actually been sitting on an elephant of pride. So he's got rid of all his bad kashais except this minor kashai of pride to an extent. And understanding it now, he immediately understands where he's going wrong and says, I must make amends for this fault. And he lifts his leg up to start moving. The moment he does that, he has got rid of all his kashais, all his pride and ego, and he steps down on his way. And as soon as he does that, he achieves Keval Gnan at that moment. And that is what this statue is actually celebrating as well. It's celebrating the life of Bhagwan Bahubali, and he's remembered in this way. So that was the great second son of Bhagwan Rushabdev, Bahubali. We learned about Bharat and Bahubali this time. We got a bit of time. Let me just start with the third person in this Sajjai who is remembered. And we'll start one story about him, or we'll start with just a simple illustration um, of his life and carry on with that when we reconvene in about 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time. Okay. भरे सर बाहुबली अभय कुमारो दंडन कुमारो Abhay Kumar. Does anybody? I'm sure you've all heard the name, but how many of you know about Abhay Kumar? He's remembered at least once a year by all businessmen. Does anybody know when? You can put your answer in the chat. You heard his name during Diwali in one of the rituals that is performed during Diwali.
Bijal says Abhay Kumar ni buddhi hojo at Diwali time.
Yes. So who writes there that, or who says that?
Bijal Shah is.
Yeah, no, I know Bijal has mentioned this, but do you know Bijal who, where is that written and recited?
She's saying at Chopra Pujan.
Chopra Pujan. Good. So in Reading, in Chopra Pujan, I mean, when we were young, our parents used to actually write these words in red right at the beginning of the Chopro itself every year. Abhay Kumar was one person who was remembered. There were other people as well who were great people. But the reason why Abhay Kumar is remembered, Abhay Kumar ni buddhi hojo. His intellect was so powerful, and that is why he's remembered every year. And people are wishing that let us have the wisdom and uh, the brains of Abhay Kumar. And what was the there were many different incidents where his great intellectual power was demonstrated in that time. And we'll recite some of these stories. But the reason why he's remembered is not just because of his intellect. That is something that is popular and something that we all get very interested in. But Abhay Kumar is remembered much more because in this Sajjai, because even though he was the chief minister or the prime minister of the country of Magad, ruled by King Shrenik, who is going to be the next Tirthankar. He was also a great Bhakt of Bhagwan Mahavir, who is going to be the first Tirthankar in the next time cycle in this Bharat Kshetra. Abhay Kumar was King Shrenik's eldest son as well, and he was the chief minister. He led a team of 500 other junior ministers. And if you listen to some of his exploits, they are exceptional, and he demonstrated his intellect as a very young child when he first came to Rajgruhi, that was the capital city of Magad, to make his introduction to his father, who he had not actually uh, seen since he was born. And there is a whole story behind that. And he demonstrates his wisdom and his intellect uh, soon after he arrives in Rajguri, and he makes himself known as somebody with an exceptional uh, intellect and wisdom. I think we got a bit of time. I can recite that particular story as to what he does. I think we have about 3 or 4 minutes. So let me do that. So Abhay Kumar, when he was um, growing up in the house of his Nana, with his mother was bringing him up, his father, King Shrenik, had left in a hurry uh, while he was not yet born, as far as I remember the story, or maybe he was very small. But King Shrenik had got married to this daughter of a merchant, who was very impressed by the person who just one day turned up at his shop and just sat there as a guest. And he was a visitor to this town, and he didn't know anything about him. And King Shrenik had kept his identity secret because he had come out from his kingdom and had left because of some misunderstanding and to try out his fortune out in the big wide world. And he arrives in this town, sits in this merchant's shop, and suddenly the merchant finds that his very presence seems to be attracting a lot more customers on this particular day. And then he invites him for uh, a meal at his home, and then asks about him, say, where are you staying, etc. And then he's got a young daughter who is of marriageable age, and he cannot think of anybody better than this person to be her husband. And it was soon agreed after a few days that King Shranik would marry his daughter. And that is how the union started. And she soon is expecting a child. But then a message comes for Prince Shranik that his other name actually was Bimbisar, that his father was dying and his presence was needed urgently back in Rajgriha. So he leaves with a small message in verse form, which didn't clearly say who he was. Until this time, he had actually kept his identity secret. People just thought that he was a visitor here, and he was obviously uh, of a very noble family, which was quite obvious from his appearance and his mannerisms. But he leaves with this verse, and when the young Abhay Kumar is being teased by his fellow uh, his friends in and around school when they're playing together, somebody once mocks him and says that you are na bapo, meaning you don't have a father, you don't have a father. And he comes back and uh, talks to his mom and says, where is my father? And she had, the only male person that he'd seen was his nana there. And she said, well, I don't know much about where your father came from and where he is now, but when he left this thing for me. I don't really understand what it says. And Abhay Kumar read it, and he actually deciphered the riddle that King Shranik had left. And he uh, understands where he's from, and he takes his mother's and his nana's blessing and says, I'm going there, and I'll call you soon enough once I've made my introduction to my father. And he goes there, and on the first day that within a couple of days that he arrives there, there's a bit of a crisis in the kingdom, and they are looking for somebody who's intelligent. And the king decides that the only way to find out who may be very intelligent and able to take up this post is to do a test. So he picks up a dry well and tells his man to throw one of his royal rings in there, and then an announcement is made that the king has lost his ring and it is in this well, it has fallen in this well, which is dry. If anybody can get that ring out without actually entering the well, uh, or sort of taking a ladder and climbing down, picking it up and bringing it back, just by standing on the side of the wall of the well outside, if anybody can bring that, he will be greatly rewarded by the king. So Abhay Kumar comes along, everybody is trying and says this is an impossible task, nobody can find a way of doing it. And for Abhay Kumar, this is a very simple task. He tells the people, I will do this for you. I just need a few simple things, material, and this is how I've read this story as a young person. I don't know where the origin is. I think this story is in Trisasya Shalaka Purush Charitra, but it's been dramatized elsewhere as well. So he asks them to bring large chunks of cow dung, and he throws cow dung onto the ring, and in such a way that the ring gets embedded in the dung, which is wet. And then slowly as it dries, he then tells the men that, can you get me some very dry grass? I want a large quantity. And he uh, throws the grass on top of this cow dung that he is aimed directly on the ring and to embed it, and then lights that grass from outside so that or throws something that is with fire onto it, and that catches fire, and that ensures that the cow dung is now completely dry. And then he tells the other man, now you can fill up this well with water. And the men around there do that and fill up the well, and slowly that cow dung, which is now completely dry and is floating on the surface of the water, comes out, and he just picks it up as it comes to the shore of that small well, and then digs out the ring from there. And there are hundreds of people around watching what he's doing, and they're all very impressed. And the message reaches King Shrenik, and he calls him, and that is how Abhay Kumar made his first introduction to his father. And soon after, he becomes very well known for his intellect and becomes the chief minister. And there are many other stories of his life, but the other thing that you might have heard about is him having uh, befriended, uh, it's either a Persian or a Greek prince. The way it's described is that a prince of Yavan. Yavan, as far as some of the literature goes, referred to Greece, but it could probably also refer to Persia, the current Iran at the time. And there was a prince there called Ardra Kumar. And there is a very interesting story about Ardra Kumar as well. And Abhay Kumar had befriended this remotely, and what he does with and how that friendship started is another story, which maybe we will recite when we resume this class. There are a couple of other stories, but in the books on this Bharesar Sajjai, some these things are just mentioned, the details are not given, but I'll dig out the details and we'll recite that story. So I think we've heard quite a lot of good stories. Shall we end this today? If there are any questions, we'll take that. And I hope you enjoyed this. But remember, this whole Sajjai is full of great people that we'll remember. And so this was the third one, Bharat, Maharaja, Bahubali, and Abhay Kumar. I hope you all enjoyed it. And thank you very much for listening. I'll end this unless you have questions.
I have one question, but it's just a general question.
Yeah.
The question is, why do we recite logos in part in Kausag and in full otherwise?
Yeah. The duration of a Kausag, during which logos is recited, depending on what sort of Kausag it is. I mean, there are Kausags in Chaityavandan and in Pratikraman, which are only one Naukar. But wherever there are Logos Kausags, generally the Logos Kausag is for 25 swasoswas, the duration of the Kausag. And Logos has got 7 stanzas. Each stanza has got 4 lines. And so in total, there are 28 lines. Most of the Kausag during Pratikraman or during Chaityavandan, the one Kausag that we have, is for 25 swasoswas. So Logos is stopped at Chandesu Numalera, which is 25 verses. And in the other Kausag, where it's called the Dukhakai Kammakai Nimitam Kausag Karu, that is the 4 Logos Kausag, where Logos is recited in full, because the duration of that Kausag is meant to be 28 swasoswas. There is one other Kausag that is sometimes necessary to do during the bigger Pratikraman, that is the particularly the Savansari Pratikraman, and some of you may have heard it sometimes. This is when somebody has a sneeze during the Pratikraman, and you have to do a Kausak to relieve the inauspicious nature of that particular incident. And there is a 4 Logas Kausak, and that is recited up to Sagarvar Gambira. So that is the reason. It's just the duration of that particular Kausak itself that is defined. The detailed reasoning behind that, and why purchase why 25 and why 28 exactly in this particular Kausaks, I'm not sure. We would have to ask somebody more learned. Maybe Jayesh Bhai would know here. And obviously, our Guru Bhagwans would know. Okay.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
I haven't been sent any questions either.
Okay, great. Let me Apna, ask for forgiveness for anything that I may have said which is against the teachings of great Tirthankars and Guru Bhagwans, and against the principles of Jain Dharma. Ichchami Dukadam. Sarvamangala Mangalyam Sarvakalyana Karanam Pradhanam Sarvadharmanam Jainam Jaiti Sasanam. We'll see you all next week for Atmaprit Smritiji's class lecture on the topic I mentioned. And the following Tuesday, you will get more information about the Tuesday, when in first week of May when I'm not here. And I'll be back on the 8th of May, but I'll be here next week as well. Thank you.